My name is Rob Vitello. I welcome you all here today, this morning. Thanks for... Did anyone have trouble finding it? This is the first time...
I took one long turn, and the next sign I saw was New York, 12 miles.
Well, if you just smell the food from Jerry Remy's, you can usually find yourself here. So we've got a great informative program today, and we're very excited. I'm going to turn things over again. I'm Rob Vitello. I'm the new Director of Corporate Services here at the Center for Workforce and Community Education. So a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. Hopefully this will be the start of some partnering that we're very interested in doing with you as businesses and other providers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Joan Menard, who is our Vice President for Workforce Development. And many people know her for many years in the legislature advocating for us down here in this region. So thank you, Joan.
Thank you. And all of you thought I was going to retire, huh? And so did I. That Jack Sprague, he's a devil. But I want to welcome you here. We are so excited about, I think, the new era of cooperation between the community colleges, the university, the workforce investment boards, the career centers, and all of the business community also. As you know, we have campuses in Attleboro, Taunton, New Bedford, and Fall River. So we are pretty much everywhere. So we have been doing this kind of a presentation all over the region. I want to sort of introduce a couple of people, and they will give you a much deeper and better explanation of why we're here today. But I do want to say that I think we mentioned it just a minute ago. This is a new time. The President of the United States and the Governor of Massachusetts, and I think everywhere, have been talking about working together to provide training, to provide job opportunities, and also to provide education. We hope that even though we're talking about workforce development and workforce training, that we can convince people to also take that next step, that maybe the next step might be an associate degree for them. Maybe it might be then a bachelor's degree for them. And for those of people who have all of those, it might be a new career and a new kind of education. So I'm really excited about this. It's a little different than what I used to do, but almost everybody in this room have been friends of mine forever and worked together on other projects. And I see Bank 5 here. I was on the board for 32 years of Bank 5, so I also retired from there. So now let me introduce one of our partners, and I think all of you will know him. It's Rob Malyon. He is the president of the Fall River Chamber, and he has been working very closely. I want to say a couple things about Rob before the chambers also have taken a new direction. They're not just a group of business people getting together to have coffee and talk about what they do in business and maybe share health care costs or share other kinds of things. They are now engaged in the, I think, the development of the community. We have subcommittees on education. We have political subcommittees. We talk about what's happening in the community. And I think that's partially, and I'll give all the credit, to the new chambers, both in New Bedford, Fall River, Attleboro, and Taunton. They have a new perspective about what their responsibilities are. So it's my pleasure to welcome Rob and as a partner and to ask him to say a couple words.
It's very true about partnerships. I'll talk. You can't hear me? This. Yeah, good. It is all about partnerships, as Joan Menard was saying just now. It's a completely different world than what it was. I've been the CEO of the Fall River Area Chamber of Commerce for 4 years. I'm entering my 5th year as the CEO. And when I came on board, it was right in the beginning of the recession. It was a different world because we were still thinking back then 1990s. that's relevant to our conversation today about workforce development. Workforce development has changed, particularly as a consequence of the downturn economy that you all have been working through. It forced us to reboot the Chamber of Commerce. You have all already long since rebooted your companies. One of the things that's happened is that you have employees, just like we have at the Chamber of Commerce, who are multitaskers. Well, in order to make those individuals better multitaskers, it's important to educate them. And what you probably didn't know is that Massachusetts has a program to assist you in doing exactly that. And some of you who did know about it may have dabbled with it in the past, and I'm talking particularly about the Workforce Training Fund grant program here in Massachusetts, but you might have potentially gotten stung with it a couple of years back because the grants were available, but due to the issues associated with the downturn economy, there were some issues at the state legislature where those funds were needed for other sources, so it essentially became a tax to all of you. I'm bringing that negative so we can talk about the positive. That issue has been addressed, and you as employers need to know that this issue has been addressed. The fund that I'm talking about is now a trust account, and it is set up to do exactly what it was meant to do from the very beginning, which is to assist all of you in training your employees, to make them into multitaskers, to assist them if you've got issues, for example, of, let's say, English as a second language, which is a common issue for employers in the industrial parks and on Main Street, whether you are in Westport, Somerset, Fall River, Taunton, New Bedford, you name it, it's an issue. If you have issues where, when's the last time, for example, you've done any training for your managers? And I say that because what has been taken out of all of our budgets? Training. You can tap into the Workforce Training Fund grant program for exactly this, training for multiple levels for your employers. Now let's talk about what BCC can do for you working with its partners, because this, in my opinion, is truly unique, and it's the reason why I'm here talking to you today as CEO of the Chamber, because I have never seen anything like this. BCC has put together, working with its partners, chambers, business associations like the Industrial Park Board Association, the WIBs. The WIBs are through the career centers, the Workforce Investment Board. Working with its partners is put together a package that takes a company from the beginning to the end, which solves a big problem for all of you, because you as employers, and I know this, I'm CEO of an organization too, and have run a number of companies prior to all of this. What time do you have to apply for a grant, to administer a grant, and to figure out what the grant's going to do for you? You don't. You're trying to collect sales, generate sales, grow revenues, and you're dealing with employee issues, you're dealing with management issues. You don't have time for this stuff. Well, people have figured this out, and you now have an opportunity here through the program that's available at Bristol Community College and working with its partners collaboratively to solve these things for you. You just need to get in touch with them and start the process. So what they can do for you is they can literally help you through their team define what kind of training needs you need, and then help you apply for the grant process. And then I think the interesting missing ingredient which is now in play is that in the past you got the grant, but now as the employer you had to administer it throughout the process and potentially lose the grant because you missed some report, because some of these grants, I have to tell you, and it was the feedback that I gave the state on numerous occasions, the reporting requirements were complicated. And when you're dealing with a whole set of scenarios built with your own business, you don't have time for this stuff, which becomes a deterrent for you to want to get involved with it. Well, now in the process here, you have a partner who will take you through the administrative steps and help you with the reporting as well. So you've got from the beginning to the end. And now it becomes an issue of what will it take to get all of you to start taking advantage of this grant program available to you for workforce training. And I say that because, believe it or not, Bristol County is probably the county that collectively least takes advantage of the workforce training grant that you pay for in your employer taxes. So the goal here is to get you to jump in on this and take advantage of it. So I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker so that we can learn more about workforce training grants and hopefully, as I said, get all of you to take advantage of it. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Pereira. I'm the Executive Director of the Bristol Workforce Investment Board. The Workforce Investment Board is charged with overseeing workforce development initiatives throughout the state, but in our case, Bristol, we cover the Greater Fall River, Taunton, and Attleboro areas here in southeastern Massachusetts. We also charter and oversee policy for the local one-stop career centers, which some of you may use in assistance for your hiring needs. But ideally, I mean, when you think of workforce development, it is all about developing the workforce to meet employer needs. That's our primary function. We work very closely with employers to identify their training needs, and then our role is to assist on a number of levels in training individuals, local job seekers, with the skills that employers are seeking. So obviously, we play a role in the Workforce Training Fund locally, because it obviously is a clear tool that we have to help in workforce development. One of the great things about the Workforce Training Fund, when we talk to businesses, and oftentimes we meet with businesses and try to determine what their training needs are, and they vary. Some are very specific to their particular business and the particular occupational categories that are within their company, but some actually cut across various industry clusters. The great thing about the Workforce Training Fund, particularly the General Fund, is that it really allows a customization of the training that you need. So I might see in the past, and you can see the couple bullets here, but I've seen in the past something as specific as training in drug and alcohol abuse counseling. Very specific to an entity that does that. I've also seen training in leadership training, which cuts across all industries. But again, the great thing about the fund is that it allows you to determine what your training needs are. I'll even note when you get in past occupational categories, I noticed English for speakers of other languages, ESOL, adult basic education. Those things have been used in the fund before. And one might not obviously think of that as a training or education area because it's not specific to an occupational cluster, but it's had an impact. So I would also urge you to think of those categories. I would give you an example that we once did some work with a local manufacturing company that ran 3 shifts, 24 hours, 3 8-hour shifts. And there was a transitionary process between those shifts that might have taken 30-some minutes. It's not in a shift process where one ends and the next one begins. It's a transition. They implemented an ESOL training through a grant, and I think their process went from 32-minute transition down to like 17-minute transition. So it really did have an impact on what they were doing. So those are, I mean, you do want to think in terms of the overall broad spectrum of training. So at any rate, a few things that the WIBs can do in conjunction with the Workforce Training Fund to assist you as well is that we can actually connect you with some companies. I know there will be one company speaker here today, but we have companies that have utilized the fund. And particularly if there's a training area they're thinking of that they've also done, the companies have offered to be able to talk with you about it. So you can certainly, if you wanted to talk to other employees who've utilized the fund, we can help you there. Another aspect where we might be able to assist you is one of the pieces of the grant that we'll be talking about. There's 3 components to this fund, is the Hiring Incentive Training Grant as an example. And employees must meet certain eligibility criteria to participate in that. At the Career Center level, if you hire through the Career Center, they can already pre-identify people who would qualify for the Hiring Incentive Training Grant for you. So there's some very tangible ways in which we can help you. I would note that, of course, we work very closely with Bristol Community College, because a final way we can help you is if you're talking to us about the Workforce Training Fund, we can identify people who deliver the training in areas that you're interested in. And certainly, one of our main partners in that is Bristol Community College. There are many aspects of company needs that they've met over the years. We've turned to them as a logical partner when they're a logical provider of the training that companies we're working with. And so certainly we're happy to be here to support that. And one way we've worked with them too is in what would be considered consortium-based approaches, another area in which the WIB can help in partnership with an entity like Bristol Community College is. Let's say you're a company that says, I only have 1 or 2 people I want to train in a specific category. I don't think that's capacity enough to do a Workforce Training Fund general application. Well, the WIBs can actually lead, along with community colleges, can lead consortium-based approaches. So there might be 3, 4 companies that may have a similar training need, and each has 2 or 3 people interested. We can work to help you in a consortium-based approach to apply as a team, so to speak, where you all can participate in the training process. So again, when we talk about workforce development, certainly incumbent worker training such as this is critical for our companies to be competitive in this region, and certainly there's a great assistance. It's there, as Rob just alluded to. Fall River certainly is not one of the higher participants in the fund, and it should be, because there certainly are a number of training areas which we can assist people in here. So again, I thank BCC and other partners for being here, and look forward to working with BCC continued on this project, and the state, Mass Department of Career Services, and employers certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. What we also wanted to make sure is that you had a chance to hear from a company that actually has gone through the process, because we can tell you how it is, but he can really tell you how it is. So we were lucky to invite representative from NeedleTech from up in Attleboro, who's had experience with a couple of workforce training fund grants, and has worked closely with BCC on a number of different training initiatives. So I'm happy to introduce Dave. And how do you pronounce your last name?
Laurala.
Laurala. And he can tell you a little bit about what he does and what NeedleTech does. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. My name is Dave Laurala. I'm a product assurance engineer over at NeedleTech Products. We're a manufacturer of medical devices. We do needle grinding, injection molding, device assembly, and sterile packaging. NeedleTech was a small startup company in the late 1980s and has grown to 175 employees, running 3 shifts, and we've just recently moved into a new building in North Attleboro in the last 2 years. The last NeedleTech grant that we had for the workforce training was to implement a lean manufacturing program. BCC worked with our NeedleTech senior management in writing the grants. I wasn't personally involved in that process, but my director told me that it was a very easy one to deal with BCC in getting all the grants written in the appropriate way to get the funds. In March 2010, we received the grant for the lean manufacturing, and in the lean program, we learned process flow, process standardization. We looked at efficiencies of the building, and the professors that trained us were excellent. They came in on site, worked with a group of 18 people, mostly from the manufacturing areas and a few of the supervisors, to learn these skills, to put them to work to help the company. So some of the examples of what we did is we did a project of bomb flattening. As the company grew over the year, our systems just weren't working as well for us as we needed them to. We found that we had a lot of waste, our lead times were extended, we had a lot of issues that we hadn't really adapted to with our growing. So with our bomb flattening process, we were able to eliminate waste on unnecessary operations that helped save the company $45,000 a year. And that was in just the first training program. In our document change order system, we were able to lower our lead times in getting responses back to customers on new orders from 2 weeks to 2 days. The value stream mapping process identified some serious weaknesses that we had, and we were able to implement changes to help our business grow and with our new customers. One of the other things that we worked on was cellular manufacturing. We have many different departments, many different operations. We're almost like a job shop. And the cellular manufacturing process allowed us to combine some operations that were done in different departments that allow us to lower our labor about 10% on some certain products that we run in the building. It's been a very good asset to the company. And one of the most important things that we did is, in our pointing department, we have quite a variety of workers in the pointing area. We identified that our operating procedure for that process was very old, and it was very difficult to understand. I had an engineering degree, and I had an issue reading it and understanding it. So we put a lean team on that job to look at the SOP, interviewed the operators, we rewrote the procedure, retrained everybody, and that we have found that we've reduced our NCMRs by 30% over the last year and a half. So the training has worked for us. It's been a definite bonus for us. and we see it every day in our process by lowering our nonconformances. Currently, we have 3 lean groups that are working in our manufacturing area, continually looking to reduce scrap and rework. It's an issue that every company has, scrap and rework. So we're looking at taking these groups and trying to reduce those. The lean program has definitely been a success at NeedleTech. It's something that we're going to continually do, and we're always adding new members in internally and performing cross-training with the employees that are in there so that everybody has a similar base. And it brings a lot of awareness just to the people in the company that are not involved in the program yet to say, hey, what are you doing? Hey, this is a good idea, and people are really starting to speak up when they see things. So it's definitely been a success for NeedleTech. Thank you.
I just wanted to introduce the chair. I was remiss in not introducing the boss of all of this, is our new chairman of the board, Domingo Garcia. Imagine having the chairman of the board so interested that he actually comes to a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning and stays all day. So we're very fortunate. We're blessed to have someone involved in the community and involved in the college. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Joan. And thank you, David. I was going to ask Rick Tripp, who is the Director of Technical Operations, who arranged for you to come here today. Do you think that it may be possible to bring people through to see what you've done up there? Is it your facility such that you can bring people through for a brief tour or things like that?
Yeah, definitely. We give tours all the time, with customers and things. So yeah, that would be a possibility.
Okay. Good. Well, we'll work with them. So I'm sure you might have had questions for David, but to keep the program to the time that we'd hoped, maybe he can stick around for a little bit, but we'll also try to arrange for some tours so that people can see exactly what they've accomplished up there. That'd be great. Well, I next wanted to introduce Mike Corcoran. People who know the Workforce Training Fund know Mike Corcoran. He is synonymous with the fund. He was instrumental in getting the acronym for the fund changed, which was a very big deal. He's going to talk about the 3 different programs that have offered through the Workforce Training Fund, and I think the presentation should take about no more than an hour or so. If people did need to use the restrooms or whatever, I think the easiest thing rather than take a break is to just allow you to do that. So they're right through the office, past the security guard. They can direct you to the left. So it's very easy to find if anyone needs it, and also to get any more refreshments. So without further ado, Mike, thanks so much for making it down this morning.
It's always good to get the applause early, just in case I bomb during this discussion, right? Look, I want to thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. I've been with the program since 1999 when it first got started. The program has given out over $200 million to over 4,000 companies in Massachusetts, training well in excess of 250,000 workers. And yet, this is probably one of those best-held secrets in the state, because a lot of people have never heard about it. I have the best job in the world. I go out and I talk to people. I drink coffee, which I love. It's an addiction and a passion of mine. And this coffee is pretty good, so I'll be around for a while. Actually, I'm here after this is over to answer anybody's questions. I encourage you to ask questions, because if you have a question, somebody else probably has the same question. All right? I'm trying to get rid of $21 million. Any takers? Yes, good. Good. It's in my car, in the trunk, in the parking lot. No, seriously. This program is fully funded at $21 million. Now, we had some problems with the Workforce Training Fund in the past. We took a hit. We got cut by 50%. Programs got put on hold. Some people got funded at $100,000, and we had to call them up and say you can only have 50% of the money because things were really bad. All right? I'm happy to say that's changed. We're fully funded at $21 million a year. All right? There is no sunset program. The program was supposed to end in December of this year. That's not going to happen. And the most important thing is the money is in a trust fund. All right? We have those rascals we call the legislative leaders, and at the end of every fiscal year, they're always looking for extra money, right? I'm going to get fired one of these days for saying this, but anyway, they no longer can take the money. I understood why they would be looking for excess funding if we didn't spend it, but that money stays in the fund. What doesn't get spent goes right into the next fiscal year. All the things I'm talking about are rolling applications. You can apply anytime you want for any one of these programs. There's no deadlines on any of them. And I got to believe that there's at least one program that you can take advantage of when you leave here. Out of the 3, actually 5 that I'll talk about briefly. This is paid for through a surcharge of $8.40 that we collect every time you pay your unemployment tax. Okay? So let's see if my handy-dandy clicker works. Yes, it does. Whew. All right. I'm going to give an overview of the program. Pardon me?
Safety program?
I'm going to get into that. All right. The overview of the mission and priorities of the program. And you want to look at that statement because it's really the key to the entire thing. What we pay for is for companies to improve their business. What we're looking for is how do you want to become more competitive, or you want to change, correct, or improve situations within your company, and you do it through training. Improving the skill sets of your workers. All right? Advancing those skill sets to make an impact on their lives as well as the life of the company. It does build a bond. It does bring up morale. It shows an investment in your workers. And we all know today that one of the biggest problems, well, as far as I'm concerned in terms of work, is that bond sometimes is lacking between worker and company. You know, and you want to make sure you succeed. If the workers succeed, you succeed. It's really symbiotic. And training is one of those key things that makes the difference. And here's a fund that's going to give you money to do this on a scope and scale that you probably couldn't do on your own. Like NeedleTech never could have done all that training and lean and continuous improvement without our help to pay for all of that training. They may have done it piecemeal over a period of time, and the impact was substantial in those savings that they made. So this is what the fund is about. I'm going to talk about the Higher Incentive Training Grant, the Express program, and briefly talk about the general program. This is the mission and priority, which is important. I always tell people, what is this all about? You just go right to this. That's what we deal with all the time. This is what the application is essentially about. When it came into, well, 1998 it was enacted. 1999 the first grants went out. It's funded again, $8.40. So every company in Massachusetts pays an unemployment quarterly tax. I know the employers hate it. I'm sure the expletives fly every time they open that bill and say, I can't believe I got to pay this. But contained within that is that $8.40. And you can take that $8.40 and translate it into one grant worth $30, another grant worth $30, and another one worth $250,000 in customized training. It's really a pretty good deal. It really is for $8.40. I talked about the trust. We collect between 18 and 21 million. What was interesting when the program first started, it was $18 million, and yet we were collecting more than that. Those rascals didn't tell us that. So we found out that it was $21 million being collected, so now we get $21 million. So I emphasize that because we had a bad rep. It was so difficult for me to go out and sell this program. My territory is the state of Massachusetts. I go from Pittsfield to the Cape. I'll talk to any group, anytime, anywhere, morning, noon, and night. As long as there's a cup of coffee on the table, I'll be there. I do chambers, I do breakfast, I do lunches, I do dinners. All right? I feel like I'm a politician trying to get a vote someplace. But I'm passionate about companies knowing about the program. It can make a huge difference in your operation, in your business, and what it does for workers and giving them skills they didn't have before. Developing that career path ladder. I think that's so important. We have huge competition across the seas. We know that. I have huge competition next door. All right? Not only here, but you look at the surrounding communities you're competing with all the time. Training is the key. So but one of the things that Massachusetts companies are eligible, you're going to need a certificate of good standing through the Department of Revenue, and I'm going to show you that in a second to verify you're current with all state taxes, because we have to do a compliance check every time you apply for a grant. But one of the things that we don't pay for is mandated training by the state or federal government. Okay? Can't pay for that. It's part of the core thing. They're saying if you've got to do this by law, you need to do this in your business. The Workforce Training Fund is not doing it because it's not an advanced skill. So have I got a deal for you? I'm like the 2 o'clock Ginsu knife salesman who's trying to sell you that one more pots and pan. I came upon this lovely grant called the Department of Industrial Accident Safety Grant worth $25,000. I never knew existed, and I've been doing this for a long time. And they didn't know I existed. And we somehow happened to meet up. I went and talked to their organization one day, and I said, I got to get these people to come to this talk, because here's another $25,000 available to every company in Massachusetts to pay for all the things the Workforce Training Fund can't pay for. And it's that simple. So I have the expert here, her name is Maria, who's going to talk about this grant, and it's $25,000 to pay for things that are like could be CPR, OSHA, and a bunch of other things. So She's got a short talk. She's going to introduce the program, tell you a little bit about it. I encourage you to ask questions, and we'll get back to the Workforce Training Fund. Can you have both at the same time? Yes, you can. This has no impact on what the Workforce Training Fund has to do. Take it away, Maria.
Hi, my name is Maria Pasantis. I've been with the Department of Industrial Excellence for 25 years, 5 of which have been with the Office of Safety. So I had no idea what the Office of Safety did. Every fiscal year, the DIA has $800,000 to give away, $25,000 per employer to give away for safety training. The only criteria is that you're covered under Mass General Laws, Chapter 152. So all the employers and employees within Massachusetts have to be covered under workers' compensation. The other criteria Mike will go over is all the contractual paperwork and certificate of good standing. The contractual paperwork and certificate of good standing is exactly the same as the Workforce Training Fund grants. If you achieve or get a certificate of good standing from the Workforce Training Fund, that certificate will also be good for our grant as well. Except for the contractual paperwork, that's all different. If you fill out contractual paperwork for them, you also have to fill out contractual paperwork for us. The grants that we've given out are anywhere from CPR, first aid, lead training, OSHA training. We've given out training to a lot of the schools for asbestos awareness to all the teachers within the school system. We've given out ergonomic training and nonviolence crisis intervention training, as well as driver safety. We've given Community Connections a grant for safe patient lifting and wheelchair and driving safety, things like that. Our grant runs from fiscal year from July 1st to June 30th. Unfortunately, we don't have a trust fund, so if our money isn't spent by June 30th, the state takes it back. So by all means, please apply. As far as for FY13, the fiscal clock is ticking for this fiscal year, but if you're not able to get a grant in for this fiscal year, you can apply every year for a grant. There is no waiting period as far as that's concerned. You don't have to wait for 2 years to get another grant with us. Does anybody have any questions?
Is there a minimum amount people can request?
The minimum amount, no minimum amount, just a maximum amount of up to $25,000 per entity. Now, if you have a company that's based in New Hampshire, but you have Massachusetts workers, we will train Massachusetts workers. We will not train outside of Massachusetts.
Provide training, CPR?
We ourselves do not provide any training. However, if you have your own training company or you have employees within your company that provide training, we also have a website that has a list of all the vendors we've worked with over the years. We will not, however, recommend one per se, but feel free to look on the website. You could call us and we'll be happy to let you know how they've worked out. We do encourage train the trainer programs. We also encourage translation services. If you have a company, and most of the company is Spanish speaking, Portuguese, Chinese, you can have trainers come in that'll do translation as well. Or if you have an employee within your company that is willing to do translation, we will pay for that as well.
So this can run simultaneously?
Yes, it can.
And what is the waiting period?
It runs between applying, once you apply for the grant, it only takes us 1 to 2 days to review the grant. Then for compliance checks and contractual paperwork, unfortunately that's out of our hands, so it could run anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks for approval.
And then if you get a grant but wanted another piece, would you have to wait 2 years?
No, there's no, if you happen to put in for a grant and you're able to put one through, just say now for CPR, first aid, and come July 1st, once we will send notification out to all the companies that have applied. We do a lot of outreach, mailings, to let you know when the next fiscal year grant is available. And if you haven't been able to put in a component within that grant, you could apply for that component again. Now, if you have a grant and you apply up to $25,000, you don't have to just do CPR training. You can put in for OSHA, CPR, forklift training. Whatever training your company needs, you can incorporate into that one grant, up to $25,000.
You mentioned you were supporting schools, school districts, so this...
Schools, towns. We've had Lowell Tech. Their training, their building, I don't know if you've ever been over there, their building is very, very old. They did a lot of their training on asbestos awareness, lead. They did all kinds. We give training to the towns, cities and towns.
Is there a match requirement?
No match. Well, we ask you to do an in-kind contribution, but it's not mandatory to do it. So your in-kind would be employee salaries, the use of a conference room, refreshments, things like that. We also pay for materials as well, so if you have CPR training or any type of training that needs materials, mannequins, an AED trainer, CPR cards, we will pay for those as well. I'll be happy to stick around if anybody has any questions after. So, okay. Yeah.
So there you go. You in Massachusetts, you get these things, right? So what your tax dollars pay for, that is paid for when you pay your department, your workers' comp. That's where it comes from, the workers' comp. So one of the things also that in our grants, you have to have a certificate of good standing. You'll need verification of workers' comp coverage. We do a compliance check to make sure everybody's paying their bills. There is a panel of 9 members who make the rules and regulations. So everything I talk about is not coming from me. The board has come up with these rules and regulations in terms of why we're going to pay for training, what training we pay for, what training we don't pay for, how the grants operate and stuff like that. So that's why I'm really thrilled to have this information about a safety grant for any company of any size. And you still have time to get a grant. If you want to do some safety training, you get it in now before the end of March. You can get it done by June, and you can start all over again in the new fiscal year. Okay, this is kind of the compliance requirement. These are the things we have to check on every single grant: unemployment health insurance, fair share, workers' comp, the certificate of good standing. All trainees must be employed in Massachusetts. So you could have people on your payroll but working out of state. But if they're being paid out of Massachusetts, you can train them, and I've run into that. Okay? So as long as they're working in Massachusetts, you are paying the unemployment tax on them. This is what the certificate of good standing looks like. It should be in your paperwork there. Obviously, the one with the big X in it is the one I don't want, and I still get 40% of those every time I look at applications. I'm not sure why. Generally why? Because the controller says, oh, I know exactly what you want. And they go get this from the Secretary of State's office to show you're a business in Massachusetts, which is really wonderful, but I don't care. The certificate tells me you don't owe any tax dollars. And if you can't get one, you're going to be told to call a number and figure out why. Do it online. Please don't request it by snail mail. It goes into the inbox someplace, and it gets assigned someplace, and somebody wanders over to the inbox and goes, no, I think I'll have my coffee now, right? What you want is to go online. Did I castigate these people all of a sudden? No, that's not a good thing, is it? My God, I'm a state employee. No, that would not happen. It would be picking up right away out of that inbox and processing it. It just takes longer through a mail situation. So online, generally within a week, it'll be in your hands, unless there's a problem, okay? Any questions?
Yeah, actually, was it covered yet that there's been a change in the law which allows for companies to partner to be able to apply for workforce training?
Yeah, consortium grants, which I'll get to at the end. Yeah, was alluded to earlier, but there are consortium grants. Anybody who gets a grant, whether it's a single grant or in a consortium grant that was talked about earlier by Tom, every company will need a certificate of good standing, and we do the compliance check on everybody who wants a piece of the dollar, is what it comes down to. All right, so I'm going to talk about the Higher Incentive Training Grant, the Express Grant, and the general program. I'll talk a little bit about technical assistance. Now, you all can read. I'm not going to stand here and read what's up there. I mean, that drives me crazy. I don't know about you. I can read this. So I'm just going to talk, which I love to do. But first, I'm going to have some coffee. Feel free to get up and get coffee. Don't make me feel embarrassed that I have to go myself and get it.
Sounds like a good idea.
Go get that coffee right now. Feel free to get it. That's okay. Because you guys are going to get the first questions. Higher Incentive Training Grant. This is a nice grant. Basically, what we're saying here, if you're going to hire somebody, you're going to have to train them. This is a dislocated worker training program. So what we're saying, and this is the only time I'm going to talk about a residency requirement, if you hire a dislocated Massachusetts resident, and by dislocated meaning they've been out of work for 6 months or longer, they're not a temporary worker, they're not a contract worker, they're not a seasonal worker, they're not on a recall from a layoff, they basically are totally unemployed. Do they have to be collecting unemployment? Absolutely not. Can they be collecting unemployment? Yes, they can. Someone has to train this person when they come on board. So I have a business, and I take a real chance and decide I'm going to hire Rob Vitello. I'm really not sure I want to do that, but I'm going to take a chance anyway. Rob's been out of work for about 8 or 9 months. He lives in Massachusetts. Now, either I'm going to have to train Rob, or I'm going to take my best person who's good at the job and have them work with Rob over a period of time, maybe showing them the sales figures and taking him out on the road, introducing him to client customers. How does the database work? Maybe it's machine operation, whatever it is. What we're going to do is simply is this, is that we'll give you $2,000 to defray the cost of that training. So the application's online, takes about maybe 15 to 20 minutes to fill out. Rob signs an affidavit that he lives in Massachusetts, he's been unemployed, terrific. He may not be collecting, he could have been out of work for 2 or 3 years or stay-at-home dad for a number of years, who knows. I really don't care why people are out of work. Because it's very simple, if they're out of work 6 months or longer and live in Massachusetts and you hire them, you apply for this application. You have a little box that describes the training, and once Rob is on board for 120 days, you'll get $2,000. So the training you're going to describe is going to be equating to $2,000 worth of training hours. The beauty of this program is that it's a full or part-time person. So if you hire someone part-time, this will also work. The other thing that's nice to know about this is that you do not have to do the training internally. The first grant I ever approved was for a woman who had a VP position in Andover at a high-tech firm. They sent her to Texas for training. Now, we don't pay wages, we don't pay travel, we pay for training. The course was about $2,400. They flew her out there, she took the course, she came back to work. At the end of 120 days, they contacted me, and I cut them a check for $2,000 to defray that much money on that particular course. So, once again, I hire Rob. I want to upgrade his computer skills. It's been a while. Actually, I've seen him use a computer. He needs the work. So, I send him here to the college to take a computer course for $400 or $500. That can be paid for under this program. Now, Rob comes back, and I work with him, or somebody else works with him to integrate that information in terms of our database as well as other job things he needs to know. Up to $2,000, it will be covered. 15 hires within a 12-month time frame are $30,000. Every single time you want to apply for this, there's no waiting period, so you get a 12-month contract based on the date of the hire, the very first one. I'm dealing with Southwick Clothing up in the Merrimack Valley. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but they almost went under. They make suits. Brooks Brothers bought them. They went from almost near bankruptcy to over 400 people in the Merrimack Valley. They're now getting ready to ship suits to China. All right? They're ready to go for their third hiring incentive training grant to the tune of now, which would be $90,000 in new hires coming out of the Merrimack Valley. Plus, we gave them a grant for $450,000 to train everybody when they opened a new factory. Very nice situation. But here's a company that's taking advantage of it. But I'm also more concerned about the small businesses, mom and pop stores that invest time, and generally it's the owner who is doing the books and cleaning the toilets and doing the sales and doing the training and go home at night praying that they can make payroll. And now I've got to hire somebody and I've got to train them. How am I going to do this? Here's an opportunity for you to do it and get paid $2,000. How are we doing? Questions? Very pensive audience. I can see a lot of stuff happening here. Wheels are turning, right? Yeah, right. Now, if you've hired anybody within the last 30 days, you're eligible for this program right now. That fits the criteria of unemployed mass resident. Now, I told you about the certificate of good standing. You need that for us to process an application. On this particular one, get the application in right away. I had a woman who waited for the certificate to come in. She had hired somebody, bumped up against the 30-day mark. It was 2 weeks later that she got the certificate. I couldn't approve the hire because we had gone by the 30 days. So I always say to people, because I have people say, I just hired somebody, I'm going to go back and check my books, they may be eligible. Terrific. File the application right away. Get the affidavit in right away, especially if it's close to the 30-day mark, and then get that certificate. We'll wait for the certificate. Okay? So it's 15 hires within a 12-month time frame. When the contract is over, you can start all over again. You don't have to hire 30 people. You may only hire 2 or 3. That's fine. We keep the contract open for 12 months. All right? And the training's, again, really simple. I'm not looking for a dialogue box of, 3 paragraphs. Very briefly, this is the job the person's doing. This is the person who's going to teach it. This is the salary equating to $2,000 worth of hours. That's all it comes down to. How are we doing? Good? Okay. Another nice piece of legislation they put in. If you hire a veteran, there is no waiting period at all. And I encourage you to hire veterans. I went to a job fair in Cohasset last Saturday talking to a lot of vets. I give them information on this program all the time and simply say, take it with you on any job you go to. If an employer hires you, I guarantee you $2,000 for hiring that vet. I don't care how long they've been out of work. They could be out of work for 10 minutes. They could walk across the street and say, I got laid off over there. Will you hire me? If they're a vet, I'll give you $2,000. I encourage you to look at that. Also, just very briefly, if you're looking to hire vets or anybody who has disabilities, please don't be afraid of that situation. It's not the person with the disability that has an issue going to work. It's generally the population trying to figure out how to work with a person with disabilities. I have access to free equipment, hearing impaired, sight impaired, computers, chairs, desk, you name it, I can find it for you. Generally, I can find it for free. And also I have companies that I know will help train you in how to integrate people with disabilities into your workplace. So I won't stand on the soapbox for too long, but I ask you to consider this and do your part as best you can and hire a vet and say thank you for their service. But feel free to call me at any time if you have questions on this. Call my cell phone. Please don't bother with my office phone. It's got dust on it, cobwebs. I never use it. I forget to check it. Call my cell anytime you want after this. True story. I'm doing this talk. I finish the talk. I sit down, and my phone starts vibrating. I pick it up and I look at it. I go, I'm not sure who it is. The guy right next to me says, hey, look, he does pick up his phone. I just called him to make sure he answers it. People are really strange. They really are strange. So, but I don't want anybody at any time to think that they can't get a question answered. Also, down the back, gentlemen, Mike, stand up. Mike Ingotti is a field rep who works in this area. If you get a grant, this is the guy that will go out and help you with it. Mike's available to answer questions afterwards as well. But you have, I love this word, you have a plethora of help here. You have the Workforce Investment Board. You have the college to help. You have the Chamber of Commerce. Make use of these resources. That's what they're there for. And you can always call me, and I'm happy to answer any question. And no, you don't have to buy me coffee. Yes?
Yeah, just on that vein, is on the hiring center training program, is at the local one-stop career centers, which is something you're saying the Department of Career Services, a half a mile away from your Florida Career Center.
Right.
And if you have hiring needs, they have a large talent bank that you have to potentially meet that. And importantly to this is they can tell you immediately if you're considering somebody that the person has been unemployed.
That's right.
Or is a veteran and is actually eligible, so they can tell you up front.
So
is eligible for this program.
What he's saying is make use of the local career centers. It used to be called the unemployment office, now called career centers or one-stop shopping. They've got so many people out of work. Also, I got another grant for you. I'm just loaded with money. I just love my job. There was a federal program called OJT. If you hire a dislocated worker through the Career Center and set up a training plan with them, depending on the size of your company, you can get up to 90% of the wages back on an employee when the training's completed. You could have that program and the DIA program and my program all running at the same time. I love my job. This is so great to give away money. I'm giving away, someone said, you're a state philanthropist. And I said, yes, I am. I love giving away somebody else's money, especially when it's tax dollars coming back to you. Yes?
I just want to take this opportunity here because we have a number of employers in the room, and very often you just don't know the resources that are available to you. There's somebody sitting in the back of the room right now, and now that individual is probably starting to struggle. Oh no, he's going to help me. But Melinda Ailes is the director with the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center in their office, right here in their office of work, but she also travels all through Bristol County. You need to tap into that office. They are a wealth of information for you, and it's their job to assist you, and you need to know that they're available for you. The Chamber's there too, the college is there, the WIBs are there. You know, all of these resources are here for you, but you know, the funny thing is it's really hard for all of us to let you know that we exist and that we're here to help. But know that they're there. So you know, if you have questions about business development, call the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center. That's their job. Their job is to help you get into new markets. They also have an element for you too for getting involved with exports, and getting involved with doing government contracts. This is all about opportunities for you to grow revenues. So take advantage of the Workforce Training Fund grant programs, but also take advantage of all these other services.
Thanks, Sue. So this is just one of the grants I want to talk about called the Higher Incentive Training Grant. And again, I'm going to reference on the bottom. This is what's not eligible. Workers on a recall, high school students, non-Massachusetts residents, temporary, seasonal, or contract workers. Okay? So, but again, it's pretty straightforward. Just hire somebody. They're out of work, full of part-time. You bring them on board. We'll give you money to train them. Keep them for 120 days. Someone asked me, like, what happens if they leave after 120 days? If for some reason they got sick or they had to move, I'm still paying you your money. 120 days is the mark. Does the training have to be completed at the end of 120 days? Absolutely not. You may not be done. And chances are the training is going to be ongoing. We all know it takes like 6 months to feel comfortable in a job and probably a year before you feel really confident you know what you're doing. It's taken me a little longer than that. It's taken me 13 years, I think. Any questions on this great grant? I'm doing such a great job. Oh, great question.
On the high school students.
Can't.
I'm sorry?
No, we don't do high school students.
Okay, I understand. Assuming that the student is a graduate, is that a recent graduate?
No, it's basically, this is to hire a dislocated worker. High school students are not dislocated workers. What we're trying to do is get Massachusetts people who lost their job a leg up to get hired into a new position. So we're not doing high school students. We're not doing college graduates who, are looking for work after coming out of college. Our concern is to get, that population, and unfortunately now that older population who's lost their job and is looking to come back to work and get hired because they have been out of work for well over 6 months.
One more question,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
Not at all.
People who have not worked, some with disabilities, but require training to get the job, get a job, become employed. Does this cover that the employer as an incentive to hire someone of that caliber?
The question was, I think it's almost like a apprenticeship program, or bringing somebody in and just training them to learn the job. The person must be on the books and hired in order for this program to work. They must have had some type of work history and have been out of work for 6 months or longer. So if you're bringing someone on board, all right, they need to be paid if they're going to be there. Your best bet is to hire the person and train them. If it doesn't work out, you let them go. If it does work out and they stay for 120 days, you can apply for this program to pay for it. But they must be an incumbent worker. They must be on the payroll for us to consider them as being hired. Once you start paying somebody as a temporary worker or a contract worker, that basically they're no longer available to get this because they're now working. So you have to look at this as a dislocated worker program where someone hasn't had a job, all right, for 6 months or longer. You bring them on board, you have to hire that person, start paying that person, and at that point, this program kicks in, all right? But you have to pay for them. Because we're not a training program for companies to hire and not pay people and train them to see if they like them or hire them as a contract worker. This program is set up, and again, I don't make the rules on this, I'm just telling you what they are. This is what it is.
It's rather unfortunate, however, that I go to the job quest on a daily basis seeking employment for people with disabilities.
Excuse me, I didn't interrupt, but Mike, maybe we could be happy to talk offline and get some more specifics about what your interest is so that we can do that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll talk. And again, they'll be helped, but I have access to some people who deal with hiring people with disabilities. But thank you for the question. Yes?
NPOs, do they have access to these funds, nonprofit?
Nonprofits can have access to the fund as long as they pay the quarterly unemployment tax. Some of them are self-insured, where they actually set aside money and reimburse the state for a layoff. So you have to check on how they do their unemployment. Everybody has to pay unemployment, but some of them are so large they can actually do a set-aside and do a reimbursement to the state. They're not paying $8.40. Okay? I'm going to talk about the Express program now. This is another great program for small businesses. It's geared towards small businesses. If you have a company with 50 or fewer employees, either full or part-time. Now, you don't have to be, you need a company in Massachusetts, a Massachusetts company. I had a company call me and say, Mike, I have 5 locations across New England, but my total population is under 50. Can I apply for the Express program for my Massachusetts company? I said, yes, you can, because your entire population is less than 50 employees. But if you're owned by a company in Europe who has over 2,000 workers and only has 40 in Massachusetts, you are not eligible for this program. A lot of companies don't want to do customized training. We're going to talk about that briefly in terms of the general program grant. Now, actually, you can have this grant, by the way, and the higher incentive training grant at the same time. What we've done with the Express program is this. We've taken a series of training programs and pre-approved them. We took a look at what it was being offered, how much does the training cost, is it going to be an on-site training, is it off-site training, is it e-learning training, what is it? All the community colleges in Massachusetts are part of this system, listing training programs. Could be leadership, customer service, Six Sigma, lean, continuous, could be welding. One of the biggest users of this program are hairdressers for hairdresser certifications. I always joke I should never get my hair colored again. Actually, I'm dark-haired. I just do this so that I look professional when I give these talks. But seriously, they go for certifications because it means more money for their people and brings in more customer bases. So what we're saying is a small company, if you're looking to get training off this site, you know you can find it by typing in the name of the training provider or the college or a particular customer service course. You're going to see where it is, when it's being offered, how long it lasts, and what it costs. We'll pay 50% of the cost of that training when you complete it. So you pay for the training, you send me the bill, I send you 50% back, up to a total of $30,000 over 24 months. How many in your company?
175.
So you can't have this program. I'm glad you have 175, but before you expanded, you could have made use of the program. So I have a lot of small businesses, especially the smaller ones, that go, look, I haven't got the wherewithal to do a customized program. I don't want to be part of a consortium at this point in time. Or I really don't believe Mike Corcoran's telling me the truth and I'm going to get reimbursed for my training. So they get into the Express program. How this works is you sign up, you pick a course. You know you can take it, it's pre-approved. It's there, you take it. If it costs $1,000, you take the course, you send your employee to the course, or they come to you, or whatever it is. Once it's done, you send me the invoices to show you paid it. I cut you a check for $500. It is that simple. You can pick 2 or 3 courses when you sign up. We give you a contract that you sign. We do the compliance check that I talked about. It takes about 6 weeks now before you can start that first training. Why? Get the application in, do the compliance check, get you a contract, get the contract signed, get it back, give you a start date. So you actually cannot put in a date earlier than 6 weeks regarding the starting of your training. That being said, I did have a company that sent us a bill and the training actually started 4 weeks before the 6-week mark. And I said, I got the bill, I said, well, the training started earlier. Well, I had to put in that date in order for this to be accepted, but the training was actually going to start earlier than that. I said, isn't that nice, because I can't pay you. You didn't have a contract with the state. I'm really sorry that you had to get the training done, but it would have been nice if you'd looked and found out they offered it 3 months down the road. We could have paid for it at that point. We had a real problem trying to communicate on that particular point. So you have to give us 6 weeks. You can sign up for multiple courses. You can sign up for 2 or 3, get them done, wait a while, then sign up for some more. You're going to get a 24-month contract to utilize this program. So you can send an employee to multiple training programs, whatever you want to do. We'll pay up to $3,000 reimbursement on any one particular piece of training. All right, so if it's $6,000, you get 3 back. If it's $8,000, you get 3 back. All right, there are some that are very expensive. The ones you have to be careful of are the 12-month training programs where the companies want you to come to a seminar training, which we've approved, and yet they want you to keep paying for it. I get calls saying, Mike, I got a cash flow problem. Can you reimburse me some money now based on I got to pay for more training? And I go, you're not finished. I cannot reimburse you. So the only time I caution people on this particular program is make sure from a cash flow, and I have been there in a small business in terms of cash flow, all right, that you don't have a problem supporting the payment if it's a 12-month program. There's all sorts of training up there. And if you're dealing with training providers or the college and you want a particular training and it's not listed, call them up and they'll list it. What's the criteria for a vendor or a training provider? They've got to be in business for 2 years. They've offered the training before. And it's generic enough in nature so someone can go up and take it, customer service, or it's generic to the industry. Maybe it's welding. Like in hairdressers, I'm not taking any hairdresser courses, but that industry can go in and find all the hairdresser courses they want, coloring and nails or whatever it is they do. It's a mystery to me. But they take a good advantage of this particular program. It's a nice program for a small business. You're going to have this and the higher incentive training grant at the same time. How are we doing? Okay, good. This is basically the general program. Now, yesterday I did a workshop on this program. This is an application process that's also online. It's good for 24 months. It totals $250,000 of customized training, which NeedleTech took advantage of. So what I put together, and I'm willing to come back here if people are interested, is I break down this application. When you first look at it, it seems convoluted. The thing about this program, the mission and priorities are key here. What we look at is this advanced skills training. Are you making a case that this training is going to improve the skills of your workforce beyond the technical skill required on the job? We're also asking you to tell us the impact on the training. How's it going to be measured? What's the success? What's the return on investment? The application is going to ask a series of questions about this. How do you develop the training? How did you find the training provider? What type of training have you done before? How is this training different? What we're saying to you is that you pick the training that's going to impact your company. We'll pay for all of that training up to a maximum of $250,000. However, you must pay the people while they're in training in this program and in the other two. People must be paid while they're in training. But what this allows you to do, as they did at NeedleTech, is say, we look at our operation, we've got waste issues, we've got project issues, we've got time issues, we need to solve that, it's costing us money. So they put a plan together, found a provider to do the training, figured out who was going to be trained, figured out the wages that were going to be paid, and then said, we'll pay all these wages against a grant, give us this money to pay for all the training that's going to take place, and that's what we got. We paid for all of the training provider cost. Plus we can pay for material and equipment as well, as long as it's related to training. The reason I do a workshop is I break down the application. I used to spend a lot of time on this, and people would leave with headaches, too much information. If you're interested in applying for a grant, I'm more than happy to come down, probably 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks down the road, and do a workshop, and I guarantee you by the time you leave here, you'll feel comfortable about writing your own grant. Right? I cover everything, the wording, what the questions are, why we ask them, how do you measure success, how do you measure customer service, how do you do a return on investment, what's a need statement, how do I find a vendor. The key thing in this particular application, it's a great tool for customized training, either on an individual basis or a consortium basis, as we talked earlier, several companies coming together. It's a great tool, but you need to answer the questions in the applications. I've reviewed thousands of these since I started with the program. And the key reason people get denied is because they don't answer the questions. All right? I'll give you a quick example. It's critical that I have these skills within my business to penetrate new markets. I'll deny your application. Why? You just told me the skills are critical to your operation. If they're critical to your operation, that must mean these are core skills you have to have for your business to survive. But if you tell me it's critical that we penetrate new markets to expand our business opportunities, to improve our growth, we're going to do these skills to advance the skills of our workforce to get there, I'll approve that application. I use the word critical in 2 different areas. Right? So that's what I'm talking about, a grant, in terms of understanding the language and the culture of the application. I mean, people have gone on and done this on their own, and they've struggled through it, and they've been approved, and then they've been denied. We always tell you why. But what I'm offering you is the delightful opportunity to spend 3 hours with me on an application, but I guarantee you'll be pretty comfortable filling it out. I have 2 gentlemen that were there yesterday, and good God, they came back today. They get little bobblehead surprises now because they came back to listen to me again. But even if you don't come to the workshop, you have the Workforce Investment Board here to help you. You have the Chamber to help you. You have the college to help you. They know the grant system. All right? I'm thrilled to be working with all the community colleges in the state, which I do. When I go from Pittsfield to the Cape, most of my time now is doing community colleges and doing these type of sessions to help people. But you can always call me if you have a question. But if you want that, Rob will be in touch with everybody here, and I'll be happy to come back down. Coffee is great. I love the coffee. Any questions so far? We're doing a great job. Yes?
Can you do express and general at the same time?
No, you cannot. You can do express and HITCHY at the same time. You can do the general and the HITCHY at the same time. But at this point, they stopped that. I'm hoping they'll change that eventually. But right now, you can't have an express. However, if you have an express grant and you want to go for a general grant, you call me up. I'll close your express grant. And then once it's closed, you can apply for the general grant. There's no waiting period.
So if you have like a couple of people in the office that you want to do some small stuff with,
yeah,
you have to do that first and then
yeah, because you got to tell me that you want to close the grant.
Okay.
Once you close the grant, you can do it. There's no waiting period. I'll be right with you. On this program here, by the way, once you get this grant, you can't come back for 2 years. So that's another reason in assessing your training needs and what you want to do, it's important that you get the best bang for your buck. And we talk about that type of thing in the workshop. Yes?
How small a grant can we go for?
Probably $2,000 or $3,000.
Thank you.
I had one company, it was interesting, they sent in a grant for $2,000 and their match was $4,000 with no wages. So I called them up. I said, what's the story? Well, the course is going to cost us $4,000. I said, are you paying everybody that's going? Yes. How much is it going to cost you to pay these people? $6,000. I said, you want to redo the application. Why don't you ask for $4,000 and pay your people? And so I gave her a grant for $4,000. So yeah. But again, if you get really small and you're a small company, maybe you want to look at the Express program because it's quicker and it may satisfy the need.
I just want to make sure that I understand. In the Express program, you need to avail yourself of a pre-approved.
Pre-approved.
So if you're a company that needs something specially for you, the Express program will work.
Well, that may. It all depends on what's up there. If you're a manufacturing company, you want to learn about lean and continuous improvement, you could find.
It's not up there. I've looked. It's not up
Okay.
there.
Well, then the thing is to find out who offers the training and get them to list it. We approve vendors all the time. I'm getting calls every week from training providers. If you saw the college is offering a course, but you're not finding it on the Express program, you call them up, they'll list it. Once they list it, you can take it. So we approve. I'm getting a lot of calls from out of state now, ladies and gentlemen, too, because, you know, there's $21 million out there. I've had people come from Michigan, Florida, and Washington to one of my talks. And it's not about me. It's about $21 million. I had a woman call from California once at 6 o'clock in the morning to be part of a workshop because she's a grant writer in California, has business here in Massachusetts. So there's a lot of interest. But yeah, you can have somebody list a course. Once it's listed, we'll approve it. Okay? How are we doing? Good. Good. I want to be mindful of people's time. Okay, this is basically the stuff we talked about. The workshop is a comprehensive review, no more than 3 hours. I do give breaks so you can get coffee and go to the bathroom. I don't lock anybody in the room. Consortium grants, we talked about this earlier. If you're a small business or you want to get a part of a grant, in the general program grant, you have to have a one-to-one match. For every dollar we give, you have to come up with an in-kind contribution, which is generally the wages of your employees. We allow you to use the hourly rate plus the fringe. But if you're small, you want customized training, you may not be able to get there. You can come in a consortium grant, but 4 or 5 other companies get the training at a good cost, combine all those wages, and get the training under a consortium grant. And those are a good tool. We also have what is called a technical assistance grant. Now, this is generally not for a single company. The technical assistance grant is a skills gap assessment tool. Here's an example. I'm working with some restaurants in Chelsea. They're trying to determine what skills are needed from someone to go from basically a dishwasher all the way up to a maitre d'. ESOL is the key here. How much reading, writing, and math, what language skills do they need, what computer skills do they need. So the restaurants, it's like herding cats, unfortunately, for me to get these guys together. But we're at the point now where they're almost ready to apply for this technical assistance grant with the help of a community college to do a skills assessment of what's required in each job. So everybody knows if I want to go from dishwasher to waiter or busboy, what do I need to have for skills? Because their problem is people are leaving because they can't advance within these restaurants. They can't get from point A to point B and increase their salary. So this is a tool. We give out $25,000 to assess those skills that are needed and come up with a preliminary training plan to meet those needs. If I can get them over that threshold and get them to apply for this, once that is done, they can apply for a grant on their own or in a consortium to get all this training paid for. But more importantly, they've identified the skill sets required for people to make more money and advance themselves because they have retention issues. So very seldom on unique situations would an individual company get this grant. Because the board of advisors, who are all business people, have said, look, I need to do my own needs assessment to determine my training needs. That's not what this fund is generally about. We had one company, had 300 people. It was union involved. They had real ESOL programs, and we actually did give them a TA grant to satisfy the need in terms of determining what the skill sets required were to move people through the company in ESOL. One of the few times an individual company got the grant, but it's worthwhile taking a look at. And so from the business standpoint or the WIB standpoint, they can quarterback this. The WIB could quarterback a grant like this with some businesses, and I've done that. I just gave one to the Salem WIB. They're doing a TA grant with the biotech industry to identify skill sets required upon hiring and advancement within the biotech industry. I think about 10 companies have been involved in the survey. Will come up with a training plan when it's done. Then they'll apply for a grant. I've given you a lot of information. Is there any questions that anyone might have at this time that I can answer? We've done pretty well. Yes?
I was just curious about how difficult it is to give away the money. So on average, of the 18 to 20 million, how much is usually requested?
The average grant size is probably 80 and 90,000. We try to give away all 21 million every single year. We don't always give it away. 60% of the applications generally get approved first time around. If they don't, we send you information as to why it was not approved. She asked how much money is being given out. So I don't want any money left over at the end of the year. My biggest concern is that even though it's in a trust fund, if we have too much money left over, rightly so, the legislator is going to say, well, we're giving you too much money. It's not being used. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a good time to come and get money. I really encourage you to apply for a grant. One of these grants. One of them's got to work. Come get this money. We have money available to get rid of. All right? And again, we want to give it out and get rid of it. And the size doesn't make any difference. But, you know, up until we had that debacle 2 years ago, we were pretty much giving all of it away. Yeah. And it was really competitive, too. We had turned people down because application A was just a little better than application B. So application A got it and B didn't. It was really competitive because towards the end of the year, we started running out of money. We're not there right now. I'd like to be back there, but we're not there right now. Any other questions? Yes?
Great training, great program, but somehow I feel that your enthusiasm and energy level has failed you.
Oh, I think so. I haven't had enough coffee. See, my wife came with me and she said, don't have any more coffee. Rob says, Mike, no more coffee till we get there. This is a problem. I know Rob wants to get me off stage.
No, not at all.
I want to talk about one more thing. And I tell this story all the time. Commonwealth Corporation is a company that is our sister organization that helps us run the program. That information is in there. This is the website for information. The guy who runs the Express and Higher Incentive Training Grant Program, Jason Albert, is a maniac. Him and I have actually exchanged emails at midnight to talk about the program. I send one and wait because I know he's going to answer me. How bizarre are we? My wife really is getting ready to take my BlackBerry and throw it out the window. So, in closing, I tell this story because I love this story, but it's true. Training is crucial. Times are changing. You have to stay up with the times, and here's my example. My son, who has his own business, he does phone app games and stuff, very successful. He's not a Kurt Schilling. He went from 3 people to over 60. He's in Chicago. He's doing very well. I don't understand his games, okay, because I don't play games. But he's been very successful, so he's up on this technology. Now, you all know technology changes things. Who heard of texting 5 or 6 years ago? Everybody texts, all right? There's a whole new language about texting. He looks at my business card. He says, oh my God, Dad, you have to change your business card. I said, what for? He says, you can't say WTF. I can't? Why not? Dad, there's a whole new language out there. This doesn't make, you have to be careful what you say now. No concept what that meant. So, Workforce Training Fund was WTF. On my business cards, it was on our logo, it was on the website, My God. So I go back to the office and everybody's in a total panic. We got to change all this stuff. We got to get. So what we did, we put the P back in the program to make ourselves perfect. So now we're WTFP. But what I'm telling you is this. Nobody wants their company to be a WTF. All right? Who wants to go there? Invest in your people. Invest in your company. Do some training. Put the P back in your company. Make yourself perfect. Come get this money and get your tax dollars back. And with that, I'm done and getting more coffee. Thank you very much.
No, Mike did such a fabulous job. I know there's more questions, so before we break, let's talk about a few more questions.
Fire away.
Over here.
I was just curious as to how often you offer the workshop.
They're all on the website. I've got some all over the state, and if they want another one here, it would be like 6 weeks from now. I'll be back down, or it could be after the first of the year. But if you go on the website, under the information sessions, they're open. All of them are open to the public. That's only 60% of what I do. I do private groups and organizations. So if you have a group or organization, a chamber or a Lions Club, yeah, I'll be there. I'm doing the Iranian Medical Women's Society next Friday night at 7 o'clock and having tea and Iranian cookies to talk about the program. I can't wait. All right, but they are all dentists, and they're thrilled not only about the Department of Industrial Accidents grant, but the Higher Incentive Training grant. They didn't even know this existed. So I'm thrilled to be talking to this organization. So they're all open on the website. Feel free. If you can suffer through it, more power to you. Any other questions?
And we definitely will organize one if several people from this group would like to buy it.
Yep. And it'll be posted on the website so you can sign up.
I want to add one thing. Our problem is getting the information out to the business, to the community. The money is here, and it's so frustrating for us not to have people know that it's here. And so we're trying everything. We're doing the both industrial parks and the Bedford District, the chambers, the career centers, anyone who will listen. We are trying to tell people, it's your money. Apply for it.
True.
I love that saying, that it's your money. By the way, I had no idea what you were talking about.
On the WTF? Right, neither did I. How pathetic is this? Mike, you know how your kids go like this? They go, oh my God, Dad, you're so stupid. I love my kids. Love them. Any other questions? Maria's still here on that safety grant. Please take advantage of that grant. It's a great grant. I mean, I love that grant, what you can do with this money. Mike Angotti is down the back. He's happy to answer any questions for you. I normally do introductions, but we had so many people, and I just didn't want to delay people's
Mike,
time.
maybe you could mention, because I know there's a lot of people here who represent or work with the newer immigrants, the folks who have language challenges. Is there a priority?
Oh, ESOL is a huge priority because it's going to be a career path ladder for development. We really encourage ESOL language. We're not talking GED here. We're talking reading, writing, and math associated with the job, which translates obviously to the outside world. All right? So that's a high priority. Women-owned and minority businesses are a high priority for us as well. But yeah, English second language, crucial. And I'm not looking for the grant where you're going to train your supervisors to speak Spanish and not train your workers to speak English. That won't float. All right? I'll do both, but I'm not going to do one. I want the people on the bottom being raised up in terms of their skill set level. Again, mission and priorities, improving the skills of the workforce. And that's what English as a second language does. So yeah, we're happy to see that type of program.
So good. And not to leave anybody else out, but we have two great providers here in the room. Lisa Jocham from UMass Dartmouth Labor Education Center, who works very strongly with any of the unionized organizations, companies in the region. And Bernadette Driscoll from here at BCC is the Dean of the Adult Ed Workforce Literacy here at Bristol Community College. What I passed out was all the different course offerings that Bristol Community College can assist you with. We work, there's many training providers here in the room. We actually work with many of them to bring them on our team so that we can meet your needs as a company, so that we can really, whatever you need, we should be able to find it for you. If it's a proprietary training on your system or something that only you have a particular vendor you bought it from, and that's who needs to do the training, fine, we can include that. The one thing I think Mike was saying is that you could put in one grant and it could have 4 or 5 different training initiatives in it. You don't have to just do one initiative and then wait 2 years and try to apply for something else. You'd prefer, Mike, if there was something that took, because you're trying to improve the organization, so that might mean you might need to approach it from a few different angles. So like Dave, when you were with yours, did you do something additional before the lien? Was there another grant that you guys might have had?
There might have been. I'm not sure what it was for. I know we've had a couple of different things with BCC over the years.
Supervisory training and leadership.
So I'm sorry, so Carmen Dean Aguiar from our program here, so she's...
And we've been working with NeedleTech for more than 5 years, and we've been growing with them at the same time. It's just been amazing to see how they've been improving.
Great. So if anyone had any additional questions? One more comment? Absolutely. You're the chairman, of course.
Just 2. First of all, I'm grateful to the government for having so many leaders. One of the things that he emphasizes is the use of workforce development, which is very, very important. It's a changing times. You know, I've been on the board of trustees at BCC for a while. Some of you know me from my business, your friend of the business, from all the report that I just recently sold. And I'm really, I consider myself very fortunate to be a bike city. You know, I live in Bedford, and most of my life for the past 16, 18 years has been here. I think I have a pretty good pulse of the population, the needs, the workforce, but the, you know, the work ethic that we have down here and the needs. One of the things, for instance, is the importance of training. I attended a lunch yesterday, where the key word was value. What can we bring value to our lives? Value to our co-workers, and the value of self-esteem, of knowledge, of all of that. You know, the value that we can provide to society, and that is by, you know, increasing the workforce, better jobs, better products. It's a different economy. It's not a manufacturing economy anymore. It's an information-based economy today. The times they are changing. You know, Bob Dylan was, you know,
He was right.
you know, 57 years ahead of his time, you know, but the times they are changing, so we need to do that. The reason that I'm trying to go around and get acquainted with all this is that, the good Lord gave me a lot of gifts, you know. He gave me the ability to, compassion, of caring, sharing, and all that, of understanding, of inclusion, of the value for all my fellow human beings. But I think when it came to patience, it was on back order. So my life does have a sense of urgency, you know, and this is something that, you know, I know the governor wants to accelerate this. The president, again, is doing all of those things. What we have here is a product. The more you know about your product, the better you can sell it. We need to bring all these employees to the table to let them know what is available, because the minute they hear training, it's automatically cost. Oh my God, why do I need to do that? Well, two things. It improves the self-worth of the worker, because we're all the same. We've just been given different levels of responsibility in life. And what it does for the organization is it improves the efficiency and proficiency, such as yours. You know, you had to curtail costs because we can no longer keep passing those on to the consumer. You know, so you have to be internal on all those things. And the tools, the training, you know, it's like a carpenter. If all he has is a hammer, everything he sees is a nail. You know, so that doesn't work. It's pretty hard to fix a window with a hammer. You know, so we need all these tools so we can get that. But above all, you know, it's all of us working together. You know, and busy, you know, with forward movement, you know. I like to refer, even in business, when I did those things, that we're busy as can be. The problem is sometimes we're just doing 80 at the rotary. Going, 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 we can't find that exit. We need to work together, move things forward, enhance the value of our community, in this case, Bristol County, and not worry about who gets the credit. You know, a rising tide lifts all ships. And this is what we have to be one, you know, with the same goal in mind, which is very important. The training in the workforce, I compare it to practice in the sports field. They're pros, they're great, but they practice. To get fine-tuned, you know, to get the timing, everything together, to work as one unit. And we need to work as one unit, the employer, the training professionals, ECC, and as Mike said, you know, there's an emphasis on community colleges, all 15 in the state of Massachusetts, to work together. 50% of all undergraduate students in the state of Massachusetts are community colleges. You know, and yesterday, this same gentleman talked about entrepreneurs. It's Matt's challenge. You know, what a great thing. And we can develop those things. We can develop those things through cooperative education, internships, which I'm really strong on, because it tells the student, you know, maybe this is not your choice. It gives the employer the ability to recognize that we have the workforce here, and he can spread the word to other companies that want to move into these areas that, yeah, these people will step up and provide the kind of workforce that we need. So I'm very proud to be amongst you. I'm very proud that, you know, I was allowed to join this group, and I look forward to working towards success with all of you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So the word is the Workforce Training Fund is alive and well. It's the trust funds now, so that any monies reverts back there. You don't have to worry about there being a shortage. So hopefully you'll stick around, talk amongst yourselves, and Carmen and I will be here, Mike and Maria. So thank you very much. Appreciate everyone coming. That's great.